Hello everyone, this is Tom Uren. I'm here with the Grugq for another Between Two Nerds discussion. G'day Grugq, how are you?
G'day Tom, I'm fine, and yourself?
I'm well. This week's edition is brought to you by Thinkst, makers of the Thinkst Canaries and other honeypot-like tokens that are much loved around the world. So this month, Grugq, There was a paper published by this outfit called Margin Research. And it's titled The Growing Role of Cyber Militias in China's Network Warfare Structure. So the author, Kieran Green, has just taken a look at some of the changes in, he's calling them the cyber militia, and how China is trying to make it more relevant to the PLA. So he says, within China, cyber militias are paramilitary units composed of civilian volunteers operating under the dual leadership of local governments and the PLA. These units are organised by civilian work units, such as state-owned enterprises, universities, and the commercial technology sector, and are principally tasked with supporting the defence of critical network infrastructure, logistics systems, and communications platforms. While historically the militias have been largely auxiliary in nature, they increasingly function as a regular reserve force that trains alongside active duty PLA units. So there's an executive summary. He's got some sort of bold top-line points, and we thought we'd just examine them and say, does this make sense? And does it make sense for anyone else other than China? So it's possible that what they're doing makes no sense even for China. But
right.
Let's kick off. The first point is the party states' ongoing reforms to China's cyber militia system have greatly increased PLA network warfare resiliency and surge capacity.
So just briefly, when they say network warfare, what would that mean?
I was wondering that myself. So at least according to Google, it involves integrating various capabilities like cyber warfare, electronic warfare, and space warfare to disrupt enemy command and control sensor networks and information systems.
So it's like a all of the above kind of thing, like just everything that's not a bomb.
Yeah. I think of it as kind of a bit bigger than precision munitions, where the US and allies talk about network-centric warfare, where everything's networked and they're able to deliver kinetic force to particular points
right
at particular times. This seems like a sort of a meta thinking about this. Like, we want that, plus we want information and disruption as well.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
It sounds reasonable enough. I mean, the point is, it's not just cyber. Like it's cyber plus.
Yep. Cyber plus, and also I guess the difficulty with interpreting it is that we've never seen it demonstrated by the PLA. So of course they've talked about it, but what does it actually mean in practice? We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully we don't get to see.
Well, but hopefully we won't.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, like this makes a lot of sense to me, is that if you have a huge amount of civilian talent, you want to be able to tap that when necessary, right? I think everyone talks about this all the time. Like you see papers coming out of the UK and the US of like, how can we set up a reserve force or a cyber, auxiliary civilian militia, some sort of, we have all of these people, we can't pay them $20,000 a year to be a low-level officer in the army. But if we have a war and we want them to do something that's beneficial to the state, we want to be able to do that. Like we want a formal structure that we can bring them in. And beforehand, we'd like to train them a bit so that we can, integrate them easily. So this makes total sense to me. I think that, if anything, China's just ahead of the curve on this one.
I've heard of reservists in the US who might work for Microsoft or something, for example. And so they've got high-level technical skills, and then they'll go and be cyber reserves in the US Army. And that also makes sense. Right. It seems that there's more of an ecosystem in China that's more accepting of just regular people doing hacking stuff. And so...
Yeah, well, I think there's also, like, working for the state is less of a weird thing. Like, joining the army is one particular career path, and it sort of, in a lot of cases in the US, it suggests either a particular socioeconomic background or coming from a certain, like a military family or whatever. It's unusual for just regular people to be like, I'm learning computer science and therefore I've joined the military as well.
Right.
Like that. Whereas I think in China, it's a lot more normal to be like, and I have a government job.
Right.
Or like a part-time government job. Like that just, it seems less unusual.
So that is yes, this will work for China because it's more socially acceptable to work for the state. There's less of a culture of secrecy around cyber operations, so it's much easier to integrate people. There's a bigger pool of people to choose from, so we want to be able to harness that.
So I think you touched on something interesting, which is the secrecy angle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be one of the big issues that the West would face if they tried to do this in the same way, right? And that US, UK, Australia, everyone, they sort of, it's not just the way that they do their operations and the tools that they use, it's the fact that they do operations at all is kind of secret, right? Like they don't want that information out there. Whereas it seems in China, they're a lot more open to just saying, all right, everyone, here's an exchange day, we're hacking everything that we can, go at it.
Right.
Like that's not a thing that happens in the West. And it couldn't because like it goes against every fiber of the intelligence community of just like saying, here's a secret tool, everyone go out and collect things and then tell us secrets. And it's,
Yeah, so the other thing that occurs is that there isn't the same overcapacity, not overcapacity, but huge number of people. So like just the huge number of people involved in the field. It seems like that everyone in the US or Australia who is in the field and might be willing to contribute already has a full-time job. Whereas the impression you get from looking at some of the hacks and leaks from Chinese cyber espionage companies is they may already have a job, but they wouldn't mind having more money as well. So,
unlike the West, I mean, you know how those communists are, always after a dollar.
So one of the other points under here is select militia units can pivot from rear echelon support roles to frontline operational functions with little latency. And now the justification for that statement, if I'm reading it right, is that because they've got a lot of trained high-level personnel who do a lot of hacking, they can do both support roles and operational roles. But I don't think that's quite right. Like it strikes me you're talking about things like back-end and rear echelon support and frontline operational functions seem like two different streams of work with different skills.
Right. And like if you're not doing frontline operational stuff, if you're not on the pointy end, your skills atrophy. So like I've known people who are just really good and it's sort of like I'd say like they have the nose, like they can just sniff out. Like you put them on a network and they just go, I bet you that's the Oracle server. Double or nothing, I can get in with Oracle. Oh, okay. Now I'm here. Well, I bet you, like, looking at this, someone, like, failed to do something properly. Oh, okay. Now I've got root. All right. Like, looking at the SSH history. Oh, okay. I bet you that this is, like, their, whatever, like the CDR or the billing server. Like, it feels right. And they'll connect to that. And, like, you're sitting there watching them, and in real time, they just, like, they can sense. Like it looks like magic, right? And the thing is, if they stop working for a year and then come back, they can't do that. Like that's gone, right? Like that sort of the touch has been lost because they've just been away too long. They have to build it back up again. Similarly, if you try and get those people to set up bounce boxes and build phishing sites, they'll go mad because it's such dull work compared to what they're used to. Like, they won't do a good job because they won't have the attention to detail, because they'll be frustrated that they're doing this instead of the thing that they're actually good at. So it seems to me that you would not want this. Like, this is not a desirable feature.
It just seemed to me that there were two different jobs, and that it's hard to surge from one to the other, even if you've got skills. And I guess I was thinking of something like incident response and red teaming.
Right.
You don't surge from one to the other.
But they're both using computers. What's the problem?
And both have high-level technical skills, right?
Yeah,
so I guess
cogs
the
in
point
the machine.
is
You can just swap one from the other.
you could train one of those people to be good at the other skill, I'm sure.
But
anyway, so that doesn't seem quite right. But as a whole, it seemed like China, the PRC, is well placed to have that sort of surge capacity because of its secrecy culture, or lack thereof, and because of just the number of people.
Right, and I think that the part of the point with the number of people is that the state invested in building that pool. They deliberately wanted to create that sort of talent pool to draw on, and they did that, and it's now been a decade or whatever, and so they now have such a talent pool that they can draw on. Right?
It's and not, so for like Western countries, they'd have to do the talent pool first. And then they'd have to figure out, well, how do we incorporate these people with that culture of secrecy?
Right. So I'd say that Israel is probably ahead of the curve here in that. So they have that same approach to developing the talent pool. But then in terms of like having a reserve, they just very literally just have reserves. Like, everyone is served in the military and is then on the reserve force. So it's...
if your pipeline is the military,
right,
you come pre-indoctrinated. So the second point, cyber militia forces function as a key supplement to the PLA in high-risk contingencies such as cross-strait operations or flare-ups in the South China Sea. So cross-strait operations, I'm taking that to mean the Taiwan Strait. So such as...
Like you go to bed one night and you wake up and suddenly all of your transport invasion barges are on the Taiwan beach. It's a contingency. We didn't anticipate. Like, no one could have seen this coming.
So that's my issue with the framing of that, is that invading Taiwan is not a contingency. It's like a plan, perhaps.
Right. It's not a contingency. It's a thing that you've planned for, and you plan to have surge capacity in the case of executing that plan. So
So it would be, here's plan A, here's our invasion plan, how many cyber forces do we need? Do we have enough? If not, let's get more.
Right.
That, to me, seems to be the logical thought process. Like something like the South China Sea, a flare-up, that might be a contingency, but that's...
given that all of the issues in the South China Sea have been the result of Chinese aggression... like if the Philippines is not building an island and saying this is ours, right? That's China. The Philippines are not like aggressively using their navy to scare off fishing vessels from other countries.
Or using water cannon or whatever.
Right. It's very like a flare up seems like the sort of thing that China would deliberately escalate as opposed to.
I was just flinging my fist around and you walked into my fist.
Right. Like I have a hard time believing that would come out of nowhere. Like that they'd just be absolutely shocked.
I guess in both of those scenarios, the Taiwan Strait or the South China Sea, it is, we've got plans. We should know what kind of cyber support we want, and if we want more, let's build out that plan so that we know who we're getting and what we're going to do with them. And that also makes a whole lot of sense for China, right?
I don't think anyone else is planning on having a cross-strait contingency.
Well, I mean, if you turn it around, I guess from US or a Filipino or a...
they would actually have contingencies. Right?
Yeah,
they
would
actually need to plan for this. And
and it's not clear to me that they would need a cyber militia to respond, right? If, like, what role does a cyber operation have?
You
in
can
the
hack
Taiwan
the
Strait,
water
maybe,
cannons
yes.
on the destroyers so that they stop spraying the fishing vessels. Like, I don't know. Like,
Well, I guess when it comes to the Taiwan Strait, there was a report just this week that the US, I think someone in the FBI or NSA said that the Volt Typhoon efforts to compromise critical infrastructure had amounted to naught. So that seems to be assuming that's correct, that seems to be like, this is what you would do. You would respond to that effort and neutralize it. And you would think ahead, what are the things they might do? Let's make sure that they can't do those things. Do we need a militia for that? I would say that the US probably thinks that they don't need a militia for that.
I think they've got a very, very large workforce of people. And I think that they could not have a militia because of the secrecy issue. Like, I think that there's a number of things. First of all, the US IC is terrible with civilians. Just like the interfacing with people outside of their community is so bad that I have friends who, when they actively try and help, get so pissed off that they sort of swear off ever speaking to them again. Like, they just
it's just become so difficult.
Right, like it's just so frustrating and annoying, and it seems to me like that's the starting point that they would have, is we don't need these people because they're not even us. They're not part of the group. They're not good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, I don't see it as culturally possible. It would take.
It also seems that there's no equivalent scenario to Taiwan where, say, the US or Australia is expecting to invade another country and maybe potentially planning for it. Well, I guess there's Canada. But
Greenland. One thing I would say is one could argue that Taiwan is the Taiwanese contingency that the U.S. should be planning for, right? If China does decide to invade, then if the U.S. steps up to try and protect Taiwan, that would be a case where maybe they would want surge capacity.
Yes.
But I am willing to bet, not very much, but I'm willing to bet that NSA and CIA probably squabble over who gets to do the most to China first, right? Like they, like
who gets to do the surging?
Right, like, exactly. Like I think that they are so far ahead on that the idea of like bringing in civilians to do stuff is probably,
again, that strikes me as here's a thing that we could or should be planning against, and so we should be figuring out what we actually need and what we would do.
Like, I bet they have pre-positioned all of their stuff, and then they're pre-positioning second line stuff, and then they're kicking out the NSA so that they can put in the CIA pre-positioned stuff, just
depending upon who's won the turf war on the day.
Yeah, like I have a hard time believing that they're going to be surprised by having to go after China at the cyber level. Like having to do cyber to China is not going to, like, it's not going to stretch the resources, because it's been planned out as one of the few things that they can actually plan out for.
Yeah, and it would be like, this is priority number one. So, resourcing is not an issue until we run out of people. So one of the interesting things is, he says, authoritative PLA commentary suggests that these units are expected to participate in tasks such as deception operations, public opinion control, and technical support for island landings and maritime operations. So the first
you sign up to hack, and someone calls you up to like reset their keyboard because the mouse doesn't work. Yeah, the internet is off. I keep clicking the internet button and it doesn't work.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Yeah. Why don't you disconnect the power cable and check for dust and then reconnect it?
So the first two kind of made sense to me. Deception operations and public opinion control. So public opinion control is basically information operations, telling people what to think.
Right.
these are nice to haves, and so if you've got a militia, well, maybe they could do this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not core operations that would directly contribute to winning or losing.
Like the deception would probably be part of a cloud of deception stuff. So it wouldn't be deception stuff like people are probably familiar with the World War II, like the man who never was, where like you get a corpse, you dress it up like in a military uniform, give it a fake invasion plan, and then dump it off the coast of Spain so that it shows up and people think, these are like, you're not going to have something of that level where you farm it out to a militia to put together.
Right.
Yeah. Like here's a critical thing that we need to protect a major military operation. Why don't you guys have a crack at it? See what you can do with your amateur.
Yeah, so that all actually kind of makes sense in a way.
Yeah, it's
like that kind of nice to have operation that you can have someone not core do.
Yeah, it can give you volume in an area that you wouldn't have otherwise, and it's useful to have volume there. It's not necessary, but it's useful. So why not? Yeah.
Yep. And I was thinking back to the Russian invasion where they tried to disrupt communications at the instant of invasion. And that seems like that would be a job for your core forces.
Right. But then maybe if you want to do DDoS against the telephone company,
that would be, I guess, your plan B.
Farm out. Yeah, you could farm that out to the hacktivists and be like, do your patriotic duty, right? And they'd point them at that. So
far, with just a few quibbles, we're basically like, this kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So this
for China,
right? So the thing is, this very much reminds me of how Russia has these hacktivist units that are sort of controlled by the state, and they are mostly involved in public perception operations, right? Like creating the perception of cyber attacks. Right, so very early on, they do things like they would announce that they were attacking the U.S.
Right,
and that would get news coverage like Russia is going to attack. That was a thing that they could do, and it was like, you farm that out to your civilians, and if it gets picked up, that's great, and if it doesn't, so what? Like it's a nice to have sort of thing. In a way, sort of like the lack of efficacy of these groups has sort of makes me wonder if that would show up as well in China's plans, like unless they were more tightly integrated with specific tasking and roles.
Right.
Like you can't just sort of leave them out to be like, why don't you guys do some espionage if you're, feeling like it. It doesn't get you very useful stuff. Partially because the interesting targets are usually harder to get into. And so these guys will look for easier targets because it's more exciting to actually hack something than to try and fail. So I'm curious about how useful it would be, anything other than these peripheral tasks.
Right.
Like these sort of,
Yep.
stuff on the edges.
Well, hopefully we never get to find out. So the third point, China's cyber units are becoming more professionalized and diversified, with participation expanding beyond universities and state-owned enterprise to include elite commercial cybersecurity firms.
Well, like Raytheon? I mean, like...
Lockheed? So it says here, cyber militia units such as those operated by Anti-Labs, which is a kind of threat intelligence antivirus type company, and Chihu 360 represent the vanguard of these efforts. Such units contribute personnel, tools, and infrastructure to the PLA's mobilization system. These partnerships blur the line between state and private cyber capabilities and suggest that Chinese cybersecurity firms with global commercial reach may act as vectors for state-aligned operations in a conflict.
So many, many years ago, there's a friend of mine was working at a company in a Middle Eastern country in part of their IT security group. And one day, this guy in a suit shows up and says, "Hi, I'm from BAE. I'm here to do the audit." And everyone was like, "The what now?" And he goes, "Yeah, I've got a USB. I just need to plug this in. Please show me your server racks." And yeah, like my friend got involved to sort of make sure they didn't even get in the door. But like no one had requested this. Like there wasn't a work order for BAE to come and do like an audit of their systems. It was just like a couple of guys show up in suits with a USB stick saying, please show us to your data center. We need to plug this into your servers. And assuming this actually was BAE and not someone impersonating them, I don't think they were doing it for like commercial espionage reasons. Right? Like that would have been blurring the lines between state and corporate activity. I find this a little bit offensive. It's very othering. It's very sort of you know, these inscrutable Orientals with their, you know, who knows what they're up to. They have the state and the enterprising working together and blah, blah, blah. And it's, come on, man. Everyone does that. That's like, yeah, like there's not a country in the world doing cyber that doesn't have commercial involvement.
What's interesting is I had someone mention from a Western cybersecurity firm say that, yes, they're involved in a counterintelligence war was, I think, the term they used against Chinese cybersecurity firms. But, I mean, it's like when they said that to me, it was, oh, this is a bit shocking that they feel that they're in a contest with these firms. Like, but now that we're having this discussion, it feels like, well, it takes two to be in a war, doesn't it?
Well, I mean,
what are you doing?
Otherwise, it's a massacre, right? Like that's the thing, right? It's only a war if both sides are fighting. Otherwise, it's a massacre. And if we were in a, so if you're in a war, it means both sides are engaged. But right, so you've got like Russia's got positive technologies involved in things. The US has got Raytheon and Lockheed and a myriad of unnamed. Harris. Right, like just loads of these defense contractors that exist in the UK. I'm sure that you know, like they, like they have people involved. Can you imagine the French don't have like Thales doing things for them? It's just like that's not a world we live in.
Yep.
I don't think it's worth pointing this out as a uniquely Chinese thing. I think that's the world that we live in. Is that a lot of capability exists in the commercial sector. The way that militaries and governments expand capabilities by buying commercial services from the service providers who...
So you don't think there's some sort of qualitative difference in the extent to which the Chinese government uses commercial services? Because that does seem like a thing.
Yeah, it could be. It might be that the Chinese can be a little bit more forceful in saying, like, you will do this for us. Maybe.
It's a different of degree rather than kind, I guess, is what you're...
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't think it's beyond the pale, what they're doing. Right? Like, that's just... Everyone does it. Maybe they do it 110%, and everyone else is sort of 80%, right? It's...
They've turned the dial up to 11.
Yeah, like it seems like they just saw what other people are doing and be like, we can do that better.
That's beyond the standard 10, I'm telling you.
Yeah, like, this is one more. Like,
unacceptable.
Yeah, like, that's sort of what it feels like to me, is, like, it's no different from what anyone else is doing, I think. Like the earlier stuff about having a militia that they can use for information ops or deception ops or things like that, that I don't think is being done in the West. Like, right. And I'm not sure it could be, because the West, like, they're very bad at information operations in general. And deception operations are not the sort of thing that you just sort of tell people in public that you're doing. Yeah. You know, like, you couldn't farm that out over a Telegram channel. I'm not sure that the West could do some of the things that the Chinese are doing. Like, I just, it seems like the infrastructure at maybe the cultural level isn't there.
One of the things that I stuck in my newsletter this week was that the NCSC, the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, had started a vulnerability research. I think they called it an initiative. And it was just reaching out to expert vulnerability research people. And that felt like the beginning, like the very beginning of
the embryonic
opening up
stage,
of opening up the tent and letting people in. And it seems like they wouldn't even let people in. They'd just say, "Oh, that's very interesting, that research you've done. That's fantastic."
Probably not even that. It's a complete black hole of like, thank you for your submission.
But like, and so that's what, 2025, and you're
Right.
just reaching out to members of a community where it feels like, I don't know, would have been something that's been going on for decades in China.
Yeah, I mean, a better part of a decade, I think, at least. But the NCSC did have that, I don't know what it was called, like the jobs program, where basically people from industry would leave their commercial position for like a month or 2 months or something. And
A
work
little sabbatical or something like that.
Yeah, and they'd be working in a government role on government initiatives. So it would be like policy or protocols or, some other more like state level initiative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the companies initially were sort of against this because they didn't like having to pay someone for a month of not working there. But then after being running for a little while, they started clamoring to get extra spots. Like it turned out to be incredibly useful to have their people go and not only learn sort of how things work at the government side, but also to develop contacts over there so that they would be able to make things go easier and they'd sort of know how to operate better. And the skills that they would develop there would map over quite well for them.
Right. It's almost like there's a
are
partnership between the public sector and private enterprise at times.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, I know there used to be something similar at NSA. There used to be people, I think, who would take, I don't know if it was sabbaticals or something similar, short terms of duty and learn skills and different perspectives and that sort of thing. Yeah, very useful.
I guess that sort of thing does happen in the West, but it doesn't seem to be a militia so much. Like it's not an organized force. It's more of a, here's a way to make everything better for everyone. I know that the UK has floated the idea of a sort of cyber reserve several times.
Yeah, I know that people here have floated the idea as well. And the problem always seems to be that when have we ever needed a cyber militia?
Well, in case you accidentally invade East Timor. Contingency might come up.
Thanks a lot, Grugq.
Thanks a lot, Tom.